Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Still wearing this hat because I have another bad hair day, Nick. I need to get a haircut, but I haven't had time.
I'm skeptical that you're having a bad hair day. Like, your hair's always the same. No, your hair's fine, dude. It's fine.
I don't like how it looks. I'm putting the hat back on.
You're fine, dude.
I need a haircut. Adam Azer told me I needed a haircut on Friday mailbag. So you know what? Ever since then, I've been self-conscious about it.
I feel like Azer's hair is always screwed up. So
it's always shitty, and he has terrible hair, and he's giving me tips.
It's so shitty that it's transferred to his arms and like just all over his body. It's just like left his head.
And make sure he hears that. He just had a text message conversation with him because he's a Miami Hurricanes fan, and their quarterback Van Dyke just transferred to Wisconsin, and he's going to be the starter, I think, next year. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. At one point, I was thinking Van Dyke had like NFL-like traits. Big arm, decent arm, I should say, not a huge arm, but like good over-the-top thrower, good size. But like, we'll see how it goes. He hasn't been as consistent with Miami over the last couple, or at least this past season. So great freshman year, though. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, we're talking Giants football today. We're doing an all-22 film breakdown of the Giants offense. We're going to be talking about several players on this offense. But one thing I know you wanted to start with, Nick, or at least you told me before the show you want to start with, was a little bit of some insight and a breakdown into kind of different observations we've seen now with 3 games, and obviously the best game on tape for Tommy DeVito, I would say by far so far in his NFL career. I think you'd agree with that. And kind of different observations about the play calling with Daniel Jones this season and last season versus Tommy DeVito within this system. Some different things you've seen, and then, some interesting numbers you uncovered, Nick, that I tweeted about earlier that I'd like to dive into as far as how it relates to this Giants offense throwing outside the numbers from within the pocket. And this is something we talk about a lot because you and I believe that in order to get defensive coordinators and opposing defense to respect your passing attack and to be forced to cover all blades of grass, you need to throw outside the numbers a decent amount. You need to throw outside the numbers with some success too. And when you start to do it, even if you don't find success, but at least you attempt it early, you force opposing defensive coordinators to play you different from a schematic standpoint. I think we've been seeing that with the Tommy DeVito era so far with the Giants. So you have some stats that back that up. Where do you want to start with this, though?
First, I want to say over at Big Blue View, and I'm probably going to post it on this feed as well, I have a video coming out. It's a breakdown of Tommy DeVito and just like my favorite offensive plays, some of which we're going to have in this video from the Packers game, but it also is detailed stats on just what you hit on. The New York Giants, not only are they creating explosive plays, I think one of the primary reasons isn't just the proclivity of Tommy DeVito to let it rip down the football field, which I think it's safe to say he seems more eager to do that than Daniel Jones. The concepts. Look, the Giants are running a lot of smash, a lot of sail, a lot of concepts that are breaking towards the sidelines where the receiver is running, let's say, starting inside the numbers, and then he's resulting outside the numbers. And those types of concepts are just something that the Giants were not doing because Daniel Jones seemed a little bit reluctant to throw them. And when you have a quarterback that is attempting passes outside the numbers, right? A lot of these teams, a lot of these defensive coordinators, Dan, they're worried about number 26. They like to load the box and have a lot of bodies in that area. Well, there's more space to the outside the numbers. When defenses are loading the box, now you can attack them, especially if they are in off leverage, which a lot of teams are kind of aligning in that manner against players like Jalen Hyatt. Now that the Giants have that type of speed, so the Giants are attacking off leverage outside the numbers. And if you just look at the numbers from last year, when Daniel Jones was throwing within the pocket, so he hasn't escaped the pocket, he was 13 of 33 last year on throws 10 yards or more down the football field. So that was on 455 passing attempts. He only did it from the pocket, 13 of 33. So completed 13 passes in just 3 games, 62 passing attempts overall. DeVito was 9 of 14 with 64%. If you want to look at efficiency, that's a conversation for another day. That can be a little bit fluky, but it's just the penchant to target outside the numbers from the pocket. Because there are times where Daniel Jones, he rolls to his left, he rolls to his right. Same with Tommy DeVito. But I want somebody to be standing in the pocket and challenge every single inch of the football field. And that's something that Tommy DeVito is doing right now. And it's not just vertically, it's also horizontally. We did not see enough of from Daniel Jones, the sail concept, the smash concept. And when the Giants did target those, it was always the flat. Was always the check down. It was never that intermediate throw. We've seen much more from Tommy DeVito, and I think it's one reason why we're seeing the Giants have success on offense.
Yeah, and I think those numbers are glaring and they should be taken into account because, look, you did a good job here. You didn't even break down the 2023 numbers for Jones, which I'm sure are much, much worse, though. It's hard to imagine worse than just 33 of 455 attempts outside the numbers and a 39% completion rate. But I would imagine that they are somehow worse. And you took out that because, the situation was horrible for Jones this year. And you just compared it to 2022. But in 2022, Andrew Thomas was healthy the whole year. Andrew Thomas is playing through an injury right now, and he's not 100%. And the offensive line was, I think, as good, if not better, last year with a fully healthy Andrew Thomas. So that's not really an excuse for me. I mean, you could look at the receivers, but I don't think that's a fair excuse either. I think the situation here, the reality of the situation on tape, as evidenced by those glaring numbers, is look, we have a quarterback in Tommy DeVito who's attempted nearly almost half of the throws outside the numbers that Jones did in a full season, over 62 attempts. Jones attempted 33 over 455 attempts. DeVito at 14 over 62 attempts. DeVito completed four fewer passes outside the numbers, despite attempting 21 passes or 19 passes fewer outside the numbers. So I think part of the situation is Jones, like you said, escapes the pocket too much. He doesn't like to sit in the pocket. He doesn't like to reset the pocket. He's very panicky in there. He looks, if he has the B gap, he takes it and he runs. Nowadays, defenses don't give him that, just like we heard Nick Bosa discuss about Jalen Hurts, where defenses are going to stop giving Jalen Hurts the B gap because Hurts was watching the pass rush. It's a similar situation for Daniel Jones. He doesn't have the B gap anymore, and instead of standing in that pocket and resetting that pocket, at least not this year and not a lot last year, as evidenced by the numbers you broke down, Nick, he's escaping it. And at this point, it's fair to question in my mind if Daniel Jones is just a broken quarterback from a mental standpoint. And why do we care? Why do we talk about this? Why does this matter? Because some people say that, Nick. Well, guess what? He accounts for $47 million against your cap next year, another 50 against the cap in 2025, and then he's on the books for 2026. They can get out of the contract after 2024 or for even cheaper after 2025. But why are we talking about it? Because that still matters. We have to figure out, is he the quarterback of the future? Should he go into next year as even the starter, let alone competing for the starter? And I know he's on the roster financially no matter what, and he could be a good QB too. But these are important numbers. It's important to discuss Daniel Jones. You can't just stop talking about a guy who's making $47 million against the cap next year. That's loser talk to me. That's embarrassing. It's, I don't want to talk about him because he's hurt. What? What are you talking about? This guy's making $47 million against the cap next year, and he's going to be in the conversation to start next year, Nick. He is. It's going to be him, DeVito, maybe a rookie quarterback. That's their plan next year, most likely. So at some point, you have to consider stats like this. And I don't know, man. It seems to me like difference is he's played in a lot of different systems, and the way that Jones interprets the stable system is just not great. I just don't like the way he processes this offense.
It's a little bit different just in the play style. We've heard Dable allude to,
Sure.
at least in the past, how he calls different plays based on his quarterbacks. I think he said similar things
Yes.
about Tyrod Taylor
Yep.
as well. Look, let's just look at what the Daniel Jones offense was. Giants led the entire NFL in bootlegs and naked bootlegs. They wanted to get Daniel Jones out on the run because they wanted to leverage his athletic abilities. They wanted to shorten the field. They wanted to give him simplified concepts. And then what did they also use? The tight end check down, where Daniel Bellinger, he would block off the edge and then he would leak out and just give a nice little safety valve for Daniel Jones. And then a lot of times, and I felt like this was really good X's and O's from Brian Dable, Daniel Jones and Daniel Bellinger would basically create a 2-on-1 on whoever that flat defender was. And Daniel Jones did an elite job deciphering that. He didn't really make a lot of mistakes with that specific situation. I'm trying to provide context. I'm not saying that I'm besmirching Daniel Jones or disparaging Daniel Jones or disparaging Tommy DeVito. Daniel Jones is better at attacking the middle of the field from what we've seen than Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito, a lot of the offense, like a lot of the offense, is everything outside the numbers. They are half field reads, and he's doing a good job, and they're creating 3-level concepts. And when he sees it, he lets it rip too. And Brian Dable, 2 weeks in a row, has talked about Tommy DeVito's ability to articulate what he sees. And it's really impressed Brian Dable. And that mental side, we're seeing it on film because he's so damn instinctive and decisive when, say, it's a corner route on a sail. When Wan'Dale Robinson enters the break, that football is out, man. There's no thinking about it. Whereas Daniel Jones, I do think he is thinking about it. They're different quarterbacks. And I'm not even sitting here saying Tommy DeVito is better than Daniel Jones, but we're having a conversation where we're contrasting the two. And one is an undrafted rookie and the other one's making $160 million over his contract. That's not a great situation, man.
And that's the whole point right there. I mean, look, I think Daniel Jones is still a better quarterback than Tommy DeVito. I want to make that clear. And physically speaking, they're not even comparable, I don't think. I think Daniel Jones is a much better physical specimen and has the physical talent and traits that's better than DeVito. He's faster, he's bigger, he throws the football better. But ultimately, this sport is so mental based. Like you said it best, like DeVito gets the ball out of his hands, he's decisive. And Jones is not that at all, really. He's decisive when it's quick game and he could read half the field and it's what he expected pre-snap and he just throws to what he expected. Great. Where does that get me? Nowhere really long term. It gets you a gimmicky offense like 2022 that worked for a little while and then was completely figured out. That's not what you need. You need someone who will throw outside the numbers and challenge the defense in that way, because then that opens up other areas of the field. And it also is just an area of the field where you can attack consistently. Like there's going to be more opportunities on the outside the numbers, Nick, against any defensive scheme than there is in the middle of the field. That's just the nature. There's more bodies in the middle of the field. There's more space toward the sideline for you to throw the football like we've seen Tommy DeVito do. And those numbers are glaring. They really are. I mean, no one should really be able to deny that. And what you said is true. It's never about who's better, DeVito or Jones. It's about, if I'm allocating $47 million to Jones versus $900,000 to DeVito, what can I do with that $46 million to improve my roster? It's crazy to me that the same people who are always like, don't draft a quarterback, what we need to do is fix all these needs, fill all these needs, do all these things to improve the roster first, are also the same people who don't think that it makes sense to use all the cap space that they could recruit and get back from this Daniel Jones salary to then fix those needs and improve all those positions. So take a step back if you're one of those people and really consider what that means. Like if you believe the Giants need to build out their roster before finding a future QB, well then fine. Tell me how to do it while putting $47 million against the cap to a quarterback position like Daniel Jones. Or tell me how it's much easier to do it when you're allocating $900K to DeVito and then you're allocating another, $1.2 million to a second round rookie pick or to a third round rookie pick. And we've already seen what Brian Table can do working with a UDFA talent like Tommy DeVito. What's he going to do with a second round talent? What's he going to do with a third round talent? And that's not to say Daniel Jones isn't a second or a third round talent, Nick. I still think he has that talent in him from a physical standpoint. But where he's at mentally at this point, how can we be convinced he's ever going to get it back? How can we be convinced he's ever going to process a defense faster and differently and improve his footwork and improve the drop back phase and improve all of the things that are just so broken on tape right now? I don't know how we can be convinced that we're going to improve that, because even last year when he wasn't quote unquote broken on tape, Nick, it wasn't really like he was just ripping it and reading it outside. Like, Dable says, see it and rip it. There wasn't that much of that, first of all. It was mostly what you said. It was mostly just contrived ways to move the football with boot action, cutting off half the field. That's not great. And it also, to me, stands out, Nick, when I hear Brian Dable talk about Tommy DeVito, because what does he say about Tommy DeVito? He says, this guy has an uncanny ability to tell me what he sees post-snap in his processing, and then it's exactly what we see when we do our tape review. And what did he say about Daniel Jones last year? All I really remember him saying was, this guy does everything we ask him to do. That's such a different rhetoric behind those two players. I don't want to read too much into that, but it's something to consider. We never got any of that. Wow, did you see how Daniel Jones processed this play from Brian Dable? Just, he did what we asked him to do, and he led us. And it's just, I need him to, we need to see a massive jump mentally at some point with Daniel Jones to have any kind of confidence that he can be worth the $47 million against your cap. And that can be a win. You can build a winning Super Bowl team with a $47 million cap hit to Daniel Jones. Think about it like that, everyone. Put that in the perspective, I think, as we look toward that.
The instance of Brian, what you just said about Brian Dable and the comments, that on its face, it might not be anything, but when there are nuggets within the film that you can discern and you can see, it starts to resonate a little bit more. And that's where my concern is, because with Daniel Jones, the athletic ability was there and they did a great job leveraging all of those skills, but it was a lot of just one read off stick, high, low over the middle of the field. And if that wasn't there, come off your first read. Sometimes you get the second read, but if the B gap was open, you're taking the B gap, 9 out of 10 times. And that was the Giants offense through a lot of their early winning streak or just their success in 2022. Whereas now with Tommy DeVito, he's coming in and he's ripping far hash throws outside the numbers off of 3-level reads. And that's just not something we saw from Daniel Jones. I will say this, though, and this is accurate. This is just factual. The offensive line that Tommy DeVito has right now is much better than what Daniel Jones dealt with. But I don't believe
I don't think it's that much better than 2022, if better at all, honestly.
Honestly, dude, I think it is better right now. I do.
Yes.
But even with
like
that
the ball
case,
just gets out faster. But yeah, go ahead.
But even with that, I don't think it throws cold water on anything that we're saying about the reticence that Daniel Jones shows on those outside throws and how he's reluctant to pull the trigger. And I have one other thing too, before we get into some of the film, and I have observations too. I mean, there are other observations on Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito. Seems like DeVito is seeing a lot more 3-by-1 sets. There's a ton of 11 personnel, which I just think is a product of Darren
Injuries.
Waller getting injured, which I really think when they get Darren Waller back, or if in the offseason they add another tight end, that's just going to add another element to this offense. And I believe we talked about that on the last podcast. Yo, is it crazy? And just based off of little tape, and this isn't me, searing this into the stone right now. Tyree Phillips looks better than Evan Neal, though. And that's not good. That's just not good, man. I shouldn't be saying that right now, but I came away watching this tape, and it's not that Tyree Phillips is flawless or had a flawless game or anything like that. But every week we would analyze Evan Neal, and I would just be like, man, there's those mistakes aren't there with Tyree Phillips. And it just leaves me saying, I want to see him back on the football field, because if we don't, I'm going to go into the offseason with a lot of question marks, as every Giant fan should.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think Tyree Phillips is like a dominant player on tape.
He's not.
Neither's
Evan Neal.
Yeah, neither is Evan Neal, and that's, I guess, your point, and it's a good point. I think it's more so he's making less mistakes on tape, which is fair. But you want more eventually, and you think you can get more out of Evan Neal. But like you said, the only way to know that is if we get him on the field, and we'll see what happens with that rest of the season. But one more thing on the Daniel Jones thing, I think what it comes down to is this: like, I can't be confident right now that this quarterback, Daniel Jones, is going to play football naturally and with natural instincts. I feel like since the very start, since I watched him at Duke, he was a very robotic quarterback. He's like, this is what the play is supposed to be. I read it like this, and I'm reading it in a robotic way. Meh, 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 meh. I feel like with everything we've seen from DeVito and what Dable has said in his own press conferences and the tape, he's a more natural quarterback. And I don't think that can even be debated at this point. Daniel Jones, and that's part of the problem to me. His process, if you just take out the word processing and pre and post snap processing, just think of their process as quarterbacks. What goes into it when you snap a football and then every second after that. I just think that actual process for Jones is very, like I said, robotic versus DeVito, where it's a lot more natural. And I don't know how a robotic process can ever really get fixed. I don't know how a robotic process ever becomes natural. I don't know if a robotic process type quarterback has any kind of long-term value or success. And obviously we were of a different opinion this offseason. And I consider myself at that point in a lot of ways wrong. Like, I didn't really factor in how much the processing really matters. And I thought maybe he can improve that, Nick. I did. I thought, wow, have another season in the system. He can start to understand the system better. But I don't know if that's really what's going to make a difference. Time. It doesn't really ultimately feel like time is going to make a difference with this guy if his whole process is very robotic, point A to point B.
It's unfortunate. It is. Daniel Jones, he does offer some things, as we've talked about
physical tools
on this podcast, has those physical tools. But when you're seeing an undrafted kid come in and actually matriculate the offense and make throws that we've been like begging Daniel Jones to make on a consistent basis, and not even just a consistent basis, like those are just
at all,
you can almost count on one hand in a single season how many times he did it. And that's just objective. It's factual. And that's an issue moving forward. And it's an unfortunate issue. And it's something I hope that he can overcome. But as of right now, please just get healthy. I say we talk about this specific matchup, though, a little bit, man. What's going on, Big Blue Banter listeners? I'm excited for the football season for several reasons. And one of those reasons is Prize Picks, which is North America's largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform. And it's so simple to use. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including professionals, sharks, and people who are going to exploit you, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll in. It's very simple to play and gives you a little extra skin. I've set my picks in less than 60 seconds. There are so many stats to choose from, and the withdrawals of funds are easy and quick. Dan and I will be adding a segment to our show before every game where we pick our favorite stats, more or less yards or touchdowns, what have you, and we'll be discussing why from a scheme, matchup, and game theory perspective. I love their promotions and how easy their interface is to operate at Prize Picks. I may select more on tackles for a loss from Bobby Okereke or Kayvon Thibodeau next game. They also do other sports as well. It's a really cool experience. Please join Dan and I in the fun of Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. You will not regret it. Make Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. There are few things better in the world than kicking back, watching some football, and biting into some delicious Little Caesars pizza. Order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day on Sunday. And get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Old World pepperoni, extra cheese, Italian sausage, olives, onions, pineapple if you're into that. Put it on half the pie, the entire pie. There are so many other options that I don't have time to name. Slap that on a round crust, a thin crust, a stuffed crust, a Detroit-style deep dish. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game. And we can get into the tape, but I also, look, man, I like some of the things I like a lot of the things that Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka are doing to maximize Tommy DeVito as well. And I also appreciated how they utilized his legs. And maybe some of that was just read based. I know they had the RPO, which we'll go over here in a little bit, to Isaiah Hodgins, because those were plays that Daniel Jones thrived in, right?
Yep.
Like if you can incorporate some of the aspects of Daniel Jones's game into Tommy DeVito's game, and Tommy DeVito can understand and master those skills, then you're talking about, a different quarterback than we've seen. Because there, like I said earlier, there are aspects of Daniel Jones of Daniel Jones's game that are still, something that Tommy DeVito maybe hasn't shown quite yet. But I love these counter runs and with the jet motion that the Giants were running. I love the fact that they ran RPO off that. I love the zone read that I think was a touchdown, but they ruled him down by contact at like the 6-inch line, and how Tommy DeVito showed a little bit more athletic ability and juice than I think I even initially thought, even after watching him for, 3 or 4 games this year. I mean, that run, he juked that safety out of his shoes, man. And that is something they're going to be watching in the film room and be like, yo, that's crazy.
It is true, though, and it's a great point that they really dipped into their playbook here with this game plan, and they brought out a lot of what they did to win games last year with Jones. It was almost like watching Daniel Jones, with the exception of some throws outside the numbers that we don't normally get. But from a, everything else standpoint, we saw a lot of what Jones did. Like you said, the zone reads. And on that run, I thought about it too. Like, does this kid have more athleticism than we realized, or than we maybe gave him credit for, or than his combine stats show? And I talked to my friend Ian Gold, shout out Ian Gold, former quarterback who played at Illinois and really knows the position well. First person put me onto Mahomes in 2017. Like, I think it was like September of his last season at Texas Tech. And he's like, just watch this kid make this. He showed me a throw and I was just like, oh my God, that's the greatest arm talent I've ever seen in my life. I want this kid on the Giants. But, he was talking to me about DeVito, because DeVito played for Illinois last year and he watched every game and he's a diehard fan. And he's like, what I saw last night against the Packers is a lot of what he did to help us win games at Illinois. Tough player, more athleticism than you expect, and uses it to advantage as a runner, and makes big time throws outside the numbers at times. And this is like what he's doing right now for this offense. In a lot of ways, it's like a little bit of an upgraded version almost of what the Giants offense was last year, because it also includes those throws outside the numbers that can lead to those explosive plays like the Wan'Dale Robinson play, for example, to kind of seal that game. So I like the game plan for DeVito. Now that we've seen that he has this kind of athleticism, I say use it. I say keep running him, because there's no reason not to. It's a good way for the Giants to gain offense. They had 158 yards of passing, but with his 71 rushing, he's at 225 yards total. That's about what Daniel Jones had in his best games last year too, or not his best games, overall last year as well.
And the team, just as a whole, in totality, they're just playing a lot better too with
Yes.
Tommy DeVito. Like the blocking up front, not even just from the big guys, but from the wide receivers, from Daniel Bellinger. Like Daniel Bellinger almost didn't play in this game.
He had a Jordan flu game, Daniel.
He really did, man.
And I bring that up. He was so good on tape. It's unbelievable.
And going through some of the blocks, like they're so unheralded.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But they really are, and he's so valuable to what this offense is doing. But not even just Bellinger, Wan'Dale Robinson, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, like those guys are they're blocking their asses off out there, looking like Brandon Ayuk on some of those blocks, man. And it's just, it motivates me, man, because just a few short weeks ago, we were talking about it's a fractured locker room. The team's quitting on Brian Dable. Like that's the furthest thing from the truth right now. And I don't even know if it's just because they're on a 3-game winning streak, because every game they seem up to the task right now. Like they are blocking their asses off. They're executing their assignments. They still make stupid, dumb mistakes, which is kind of synonymous with the 2023 Giants, unfortunately. But now they're actually able to overcome some of those mistakes. And it's not just against the New England Patriots in Washington. It was against a solid team like the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Daniel Bellinger because he really did have a phenomenal game on tape. You could see it when you're watching him block, and obviously he made a couple catches as well, but it's those little things he does for the Giants as a blocker that just makes such a difference in them winning and losing football games. You talk about the one Saquon Barkley touchdown run, I believe it was the second one. It's like Barkley made a great move at the line of scrimmage to avoid that tackle. Awesome. But if Daniel Bellinger loses fast, like you always say, instead of losing, so I don't even think he lost. I think he just won that block.
No, he won. Yeah.
Yeah, he won that block, which is awesome because it's against an man on line of scrimmage as a tight end. But even if he just loses, or I'm sorry, if he did lose fast, that play's dead. Like Saquon Barkley doesn't get in there. And that player who Bellinger's assignment is making the play. And that's a game-changing play. And those are the type of things that, again, they're unheralded because nobody talks about them. They don't go in the box score. But you know who cares about that and sees that? Joe Shane. You know who cares about and sees that? Brian Dable. That's the important. Those are the people who count ultimately.
And every front office, if Daniel Bellinger doesn't re-sign to be a New York Giant, every pro scouting department
would understand
like, 82 on the Giants can
I think he'll be there for a while. I think that's
too.
the type of thing that's the type of play on tape that gets you re-signed.
100%. One more thing before we get to the film, just off of, because you used to ask me a lot, hey, what did you think differently after watching the tape? And sometimes I never really knew exactly how to answer that. But I have one for this game. Watching the broadcast, I saw Ben Bredeson finish blocks and fall on top of guys. And I'm like, yo, there you go, Ben Bredeson. That's what I'm talking about. But watching the All-22, I realized it was because he lost very badly and did a great job recovering. So I want to give him credit because there's a skill and a strength in recovering. But he lost pretty badly and forced Saquon Barkley to do a lot more work than he probably should have.
Sure.
So it made me kind of it dampened the amount of praise I was probably going to give Ben Bredeson once I got into the All-22, unfortunately. But it wasn't a terrible game for him.
On the flip side of that, and not to do with Ben Bredeson, but I thought, and we've had it's been like a somewhat steady drumbeat with this player. He's had, I think, I wouldn't say it's like massive jumps each week, but I feel like he's playing better and better as he's getting healthier and healthier and getting more reps under his belt at this NFL speed. But I did think it might have been John Michael Schmidt's best game on tape. I really do think that some of the blocks he made, there was one block he made in the run game to spring, I think, a 17-yard from Saquon Barkley, came off the double team and then sealed off the next level defender to give that little crease for Barkley. And I just feel like his movement skills bring a different beast to that Giants interior offensive line.
Yeah, he had a great game. I don't know if it's his best game. I think there was one earlier in the season that was a little bit more impressive, but it was up there. He got beat really bad by TJ Slayton on one play. But again, I think Saquon bailed him out on that one, and it ended up being like a solid. Saquon Barkley, dude, he had runs like the fumble. I don't know if I have that. And like the fumble, it would have sucked if the Giants lost this game because that was a phenomenal run by Saquon Barkley. He made, I think it was a DB just miss right at the line of scrimmage, and then juked out someone else, and then cut off the angle of the safety, like who should have been like the final guy to beat. Like Saquon Barkley, dude. Like I don't know if I had a man crush on him over the last couple of weeks because I've been kind of praising him on the podcast, but he just does so many little things that to the I don't want to say untrained eye and act like my eye is trained, but just watching on broadcast, you might just be like, oh, nice. But then when you dive into the All-22 and you see just like the little intricacies and the nuance of how he runs, you're like, damn, dude, that's valuable right there. There's some value there.
He's done a good job forcing missed tackles this season for sure, especially after he's come back from his injury. All right, Nick, let's get into some plays and watch some fun stuff here.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to dive right into the plays. I'm going to bring it up. First, we're going to go over this RPO by the New York Giants. This was the first pass, and it was in the second quarter that went beyond the line of scrimmage, which I'm guessing it was windy. We didn't have anybody slide into at least my DMs and tell me that they were at the game, and it was really
it looked so windy.
It had to be because Jordan Love wasn't throwing the football well or past the line of scrimmage for a lot of the game. But as we'll see on this play, we're going to have the RPO, and we're going to see the read. You're going to see the pullers, Ben Bredeson and Daniel Bellinger go to the front side. Tommy DeVito is reading, and you can see just everybody just crash and fill. Isaiah Hodgins gets left alone against an outside leverage defender when that safety goes to fill because he thinks it's going to be a run. Ball out, great timing by Tommy DeVito, right where it needs to be to Isaiah Hodgins. Look at the read. It's going to read. 34 drops down, 58. This honestly should have been ineligible man downfield on Andrew Thomas.
Oh, yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, if you look at it from this angle, you could see the ball is on the 39-yard line. Snap. He's at like the 42. Yeah. He's down there, but the Giants have been screwed over by that quite often in recent memory. So I just like the timing and the confidence of this play from Tommy DeVito and how they were able to make an over-aggressive defense pay. And this wasn't the first time Tommy DeVito did that.
Yeah, run it back a little bit. I think one thing to focus on here is just how much the timing factors into this play being successful, because you can obviously see at the end of it, Isaiah Hodgins gets hit, still makes the catch and holds on to the football, but obviously he has very little space to work with. Now, why is the timing possible here? Watch Tommy DeVito. Once he makes this play action pass, look at his feet. He doesn't get a super wide base, right? He doesn't take a million milliseconds, I should say, to kind of widen his base, get into his throwing motion, and get the football out. It's almost like a 3/4 type of throw here, little rip in there. And if you watch just from the waist down, the feet are very quiet here. The base is very narrow as you want it here. That's why this works. Okay, right? It's not over the top. It's not taking forever to get the ball out. It's a quick release with very little movement from the feet.
Yeah, I absolutely loved watching that from DeVito. And now we have a 1st and 10, 12:41 in the second quarter. Wan'Dale Robinson's 32-yard rush off of the Wildcat. You brought this up on yesterday's podcast, the running back background of Wan'Dale Robinson. You could see it here. And these are just good blocks, though. But he gets lateral, forces 34 to expand. Yep. He can cut up right now. He doesn't. He keeps going lateral. Get 34 outside the numbers. So now you have Breida and Isaiah Hodgins blocking outside the numbers, and then just put your foot in the ground and then explode and get vertical. That's exactly what happens. Again, little nuanced thing there, but Wan'Dale Robinson, this is vision. This is running back feel to maximize the blocks in front of him. We talk a lot about setting up blockers and things of that nature. Well, this is similar to that. You're putting you're forcing the defenders into a position to where your offensive teammates are going to have a better angle and better chance to successfully block. And that's exactly what happens. If it wasn't for that safety tracking Wan'Dale Robinson down from the backside, this would have been a touchdown.
Yep. Great job by Wan'Dale Robinson to do exactly what you said. Expand it by looking like he's going to keep going outside, then just dig your foot in and cut it up. And I love the angle he takes there after it.
Absolutely. And this is also a GT Wildcat counter for the quarterback, because both the play side, what ended up being the play side guard and tackle pull, and Saquon hands it off. And look, just nothing but space.
So many eyes on Saquon.
So many eyes on that's the effect of 26 as well. Now we're going to move on. The very next play is the Saquon Barkley first touchdown. And Dan, this is probably the best blocked play I've seen since I've covered the New York Giants.
Wow.
The play side. Look, dude, they all fall. Everyone's down on the ground. And it's because Mark Lewinsky is the catalyst to that. But
fires in there.
If Mark Lewinsky isn't that, like, you still have Daniel Bellinger makes great contact.
Great job. Yep.
I think that's Lucas Van Ness, who he drives to the ground. And then you have Andrew Thomas and Justin Pugh are all executing their block well. And he's just a wrecking ball, man. Like, just an absolute wrecking ball. Like, Miley Cyrus is going to give him a call type of thing. And Saquon, there's no one even near Saquon Barkley. And like I said on yesterday's pod, just don't finger roll like that again. And if you do, just make sure you're actually in the end zone, because that was way too close for comfort. Now we're going to have the start of the fourth drive. The Giants are going to come out with a play action rollout, get Tommy DeVito outside. Good job by Daniel Bellinger to kind of shove his defensive assignment inside. Tommy DeVito extends the play, and you're going to find Wan'Dale Robinson on the sideline. I also love this play call. You're going to motion Wan'Dale Robinson from the opposite side to create a 3-by-1 set. You're going to snap the football. Wan'Dale Robinson is running. And what happens is you're going to have that initial outside receiver. He's now going to become the number 2. So you're going to have 2 vertical routes against a cover 3 defense. So what happens is they're going to flood that deep third, number 37, where he's at. He's going to be forced to midpoint, meaning he's going to have to split the difference between the 1 and the 2. Wan'Dale Robinson, and I believe that's Darius Slayton. You can see how he gets in between them both, keeps his eyes on Darius Slayton while also gaining depth and trying to cut off the angle of Wan'Dale Robinson. You have a middle of the field closed safety who 37 is trying to pass Darius Slayton off to, but then you have the backside crosser. So his eyes are going through Slayton to the backside crosser while also trying to gain positional leverage against Wan'Dale Robinson. But Robinson could work into both of these players' blind spots, the deep third player and also the curl flat player, number 25. And Robinson does such a great job doing this. And this is something that Brian Dable said after the game, or it might have been today in his press conference on Tuesday, about the spatial awareness of Wan'Dale Robinson. He kind of like glossed over it and like said it real quickly, but that's just something that Wan'Dale Robinson really possesses. And this is a great indication of that, right? Because he works into the blind spot and then he just gets as tight to the sideline as he can, right? As he does right here. Gets really tight to the sideline, sees Tommy DeVito expanding, and then he runs back to Tommy DeVito and makes that catch. And this is a good throw from DeVito, but it could have not been caught because it was out of bounds. You need to have strong hands and you need to have great concentration to get your feet in bounds and haul this pass in. This is a beautiful play from Wan'Dale Robinson, a smart play from Wan'Dale Robinson, and a very good play from Tommy DeVito as well.
Yeah, this is the play I mentioned last night as one that would be considered, in my mind at least, to show off special traits. Because when you put all of those things together in one play, the concentration, the strong hands, like you mentioned, the ability to contort your body, the body control, working back to the quarterback, the part that you mentioned with Brian Dable, spatial awareness, that's 4 or 5 traits put together in one play, one fantastic, spectacular play. And that's what looks special. When you scout guys, that's the special moment that you're like, oh, wow, some guy could do that for me. I want him part of my team. And that's obviously what Joe Shane and Brian Dable did. And I also don't want to take anything away, like you said, not that we were, from Tommy DeVito here with the throw. I almost did it again. From Tommy DeVito here with the throw, because look at him. He's off platform, dude. He tries to reset the pocket inside, which I thought was interesting, and I like that. Then he jukes that defender and kind of uses that leverage to juke that defender. But then he's on the move after that, and he's not going to be able to square his shoulders. He's not going to be able to get into a balanced base. He's going to have to throw this ball from an unbalanced base. That's good arm talent right there, man. That ball just goes on a line toward Wan'Dale Robinson there.
It absolutely does. And he keeps his eyes downfield. It just shows a lot from Tommy DeVito and also Wan'Dale Robinson, and also the coaching, man. Again, use Wan'Dale Robinson in motion, and now you get him against a zone match defense, cover 3. You're flooding that deep third. You know that outside third cornerback's rules. You know he's going to midpoint, and then that's going to allow Wan'Dale Robinson to work into the blind spot while Tommy DeVito is also flowing in that direction, not on a naked bootleg, but just a bootleg, because Daniel Bellinger is there to assist with the blocking, who could have also been an eligible receiver to catch a pass if all hell broke loose for the Giants. So this is just a good play for a variety of reasons for the New York Giants.
Yeah, and I do think that when Tommy DeVito is rolling to his right, like he was on this one, he does have a really nice rip while rolling to his right. Like I feel like this is one of his better throws in the NFL. We saw it on the Hodgins TD, and we saw it on this play. I just feel like he gets a good amount of velocity on these throws, and he throws them on a line.
It's a Cheech and Chong rip right here, man. That's just right there on target. Second and 6, 12:23 left in quarter 3. I believe. No, though. I think this is actually that's going to be the DeVito run. We'll go over that in a little bit. But right here, this is 1st and 10, 12:52 left. And I just wanted to kind of touch on the rules that I was breaking down a little bit before, because we're going to see something similar on this play. You're going to have Wan'Dale Robinson just sit at the line of scrimmage. He's the number 1 receiver in a plus splits outside the numbers by about 5 yards or so, right? Then you're going to have an inside receiver. I believe it's Isaiah Hodgins, who is the number 2. It's going to be another cover 3 match type of situation. Hodgins is going to release slightly to the outside to draw the eyes of 37, to have 37 bail off Wan'Dale Robinson, because 37 is the deep third defender. The curl flat defender is the apex defender. But both the curl flat, this is just knowing the rules of the defense and great X's and O's and scheming from Mike Kafka and Brian Dable. Both the deep third defender and the curl flat defender account for Isaiah Hodgins, leaving Wan'Dale Robinson wide open. I don't know if this is a communication issue or if the apex defender just didn't realize Wan'Dale Robinson was just chilling on the line of scrimmage. So this provided Tommy DeVito just an easy check down. And I got to say, 37 makes a great tackle on Wan'Dale Robinson in space along the sideline, but just create easy yardage by putting your players in a position to take advantage of the defense. And that's just something that I feel like both sides of the football do. Wink Martindale does it on the defensive side, but Mike Kafka and Brian Dable, they've done it a lot in this game, and they've done it a lot recently with Tommy DeVito. And this is just one instance of that.
And you have that option on the other side of the field with Barkley as well. So he really could have gone either way with it.
And that's the point, man. And especially on this one, because it's the short side of the field, so you don't have as
Right.
much space. So that number 2 receiver, Isaiah Hodgins, he just angles outward a little bit, and 37 has to respect it. And then what's a curl flat defender going to do? Is he going to work over the top of number 2 release? Is he going to work underneath it? It just creates traffic for an easy check down to Wan'Dale Robinson, but they didn't even pick it up. So honestly, this was a great outcome for the Packers, though, because it could have been a lot worse.
Yes. They made it. It's not that they got lucky. They made a really good open field tackle there.
And now we get Tommy D following great blocks from Isaiah Hodgins and Lawrence Cager to get down to
a little Chris
Berman. Yeah, exactly, man. Like that was a juke. And look, make them pay. Make the defense pay, Dan. If you want to be over aggressive and you want to play 26 so aggressively, right, cool. I'm going to make you pay. You can see the end man on the line of scrimmage go aggressively down. And then Isaiah Hodgins is like, oh, awesome. Now we're going to have the replacing defender who's going to try to account for that end man on the line of scrimmage. He's just going to get picked off by Hodgins. Now we have Cager takes out 37. And then Tommy DeVito just jukes the safety out. Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a great game, also gets a tackle on this play.
Yeah, he can. It would have been a touchdown if Robinson wasn't there, which would have been even crazier. It almost was a touchdown anyway, but just a great run there by Tommy DeVito.
I love the celebrations. You can see John Michael Schmitz and Darius Slayton, hands in the air. Justin Pugh, Ben Bredesen, but it was for naught. But Saquon Barkley ended up scoring. I don't have that one, but I do have this play. Flea flicker with 3:43 left in quarter 3. Yeah, I don't know if this was designed to go to the back shoulder. This was more of a lucky play. I'm honestly,
this was pretty lucky, but I like it.
But it's kind of crazy, man, because Wan'Dale Robinson does such a good job using his diminutive frame to shield from the safety who was coming over. And then also somehow, and this is somewhat luck-based, using Devondre Campbell as a shield to block. I think it's Rudy Ford, but it might not be. It might be Darnell Savage. Regardless, flea flicker play with motioning Wan'Dale Robinson, and now you have 2 receivers on that side. You're going to have Isaiah Hodgins clear out. Wan'Dale Robinson, I love the tempo here. I'm just chilling. He gets isolated against Devondre. This is the goal. You're going to have Devondre Campbell, who's going to expand outward with Wan'Dale Robinson. You want to isolate Devondre Campbell against Wan'Dale Robinson. That's going to be a win in the New York Giants book 9 times out of 10. It's just the deep third defender on that side doesn't necessarily clear out with Isaiah Hodgins. He kind of senses what's going on. But look, you get a one-on-one matchup with the linebacker. Tommy DeVito throws it, and I'm hoping this was a back shoulder throw. If so, it's very accurate. It could have been. Yeah, I think it is. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. Call me a homer. But what an adjustment, though, by Wan'Dale Robinson.
That's what it really comes down to. Wan'Dale on the adjustment here.
That's an insane adjustment, Dan, to get around Devondre Campbell. This could have been an interception. And then also, who takes the hit? It's not even Wan'Dale Robinson. Devondre Campbell takes the hit because Wan'Dale Robinson just Houdini'd his way around him.
Awesome play right there. An awesome finish by Wan'Dale Robinson, showing off that ability to, contort his body, control it in the air, and come back to the football.
And look at our tight end, Mark Lewinsky, out there with the play action, really selling it. Don't even have Daniel Bellinger out. I
like that move too, Nick, because a lot of the times when you bring in Glowinski, it's almost tipping off to the defense that you're going to run the football. And a lot of bad coordinators will just tip it off. Like they'll bring in the big receivers when they run and for the insert blocks. I like when the coordinators do the opposite, right? They show it like, oh, this is going to be a play we're going to run. We have Glowinski in as the extra tight end. And then they actually run something like a flea flicker.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm right there with you. Now we're going to have the touchdown pass.
Phenomenal.
This is another very great play by Tommy DeVito, an excellent play by Isaiah Hodgins. And also I like the play call. 3-by-1 set in the red zone near the 10-yard line. I think it's at the 8. You're going to motion Isaiah Hodgins, and now that's going to isolate and expand the cornerback on that side. So that you're going to have a man beater because it's man coverage to the top of the screen. Tommy DeVito doesn't love it. Look, Brian Daboll says, if you don't love it in this area of the field, don't throw it. That's one of Brian Daboll's rules. That's one of every coach's rules. He doesn't love it. You could see why, because it's played well by the Green Bay Packers. And Jalen Hyatt, who is the lone receiver before the motion, he's going to angle inwards. That's going to clear out that safety and occupy him. So now you're going to have an isolation with the motioning offensive player, Isaiah Hodgins, against number 37. Tommy DeVito doesn't love what he sees. He scans the full field, and then he's like, all right, I have Hodgins to that side, and no one's going to be near Hodgins other than 37. So Hodgins just needs to beat 37. DeVito does a great job extending the play, allowing Hodgins to get open, and just throws an absolute dart here for the big body receiver.
Yeah, the 2 things that stand out the most to me about this play, Nick, are the seed he throws at the end from that off-balance angle. Look, again, as you'll see from this angle, I mean, that's a rip. That's a rip and a half. His shoulders aren't squared. His feet aren't set. His base isn't set. That's arm talent right there in the intermediate area of the field, and he puts it high so the receiver can extend away from his frame. He puts it away from the defensive back. Like, this is pretty much perfect ball placement right there. Actually, it is perfect ball placement right there. It's 10 of 10 ball placement. And then when you add in the velocity and how the ball traveled there so fast, it just makes it a 10 of 10 throw. Arguably his best of his career, probably, right? Like up there for sure. But rolling this all the way back, the second part of this play that just excites me so much, Nick, is watching, like, and I have a different angle of this, so I'm not sure if I could actually, I don't think I can actually see it from your angle. So on my all-22, Nick, I had this from, and I'm talking about the end zone angle, not the sideline angle. So just roll to that because we'll still see it somewhat there. But on my end zone angle, Nick, it's coming at me so I can see the quarterback's eyes. And you can watch as his helmet goes left to right, working through the full progression and then coming back toward the scramble and the throw. Like, he actually, what he determines to be there pre-snap on the left side is just not there. And he comes off it pretty fast to go to that second read in the middle of the field. And then when that's not there, he comes up fast to scramble and then make that off-platform throw. That's big time stuff from DeVito.
This is big time stuff from DeVito, and also Isaiah Hodgins. Look, he's the best
True.
wide receiver who in the red zone. This is something we've been saying now for a little bit, and this is his third touchdown in the red zone. Touchdowns, I don't know if you know this, Dan. Giants haven't had many of them.
Hard to come by in the passing game.
They're hard to come by in the
really hard to come by in the passing game. Though, how many does DeVito have now? I'm actually curious to get these numbers. How many giant passing touchdowns the Giants have? I know Daniel Jones.
I think he has 9, right?
Touchdowns. Does Tommy DeVito have 9 passing touchdowns?
He has 8 or 9, right?
Way. That's amazing if he has that. Let's take a look at some Tommy DeVito stats here.
Yeah, you go do that. I'll break down this.
You break down
play with 49 seconds. A second and
8 touchdowns. He has 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions so far.
A second and 1 with 49 seconds left. We all know it. This is the sale concept. Love how they run this. Love that DeVito absolutely is comfortable throwing this 7 route, because the sale concept is a 3-level route concept with the flat being occupied by the running back, as you see, and then a 7 from Wan'Dale Robinson, which is a corner route that runs behind a clear route. And all Wan'Dale Robinson needs to do is beat Keyshawn Nixon, who seems to be in outside leverage. So this is just a filthy move by Wan'Dale Robinson to force Keyshawn Nixon to overplay to the inside. Like, look, you have outside leverage. That means the defensive player does not want you to go outside. So you really need to sell it. You really need to win on that release and really manipulate that defender. And you can see the hips of that defender gets fully turned around. Wan'Dale Robinson creates like 3 yards of separation. And DeVito, like we said, man, recognizes it, delivers, very catchable ball. So Randy Bullock can go and kick the 37-yard field goal.
Look how decisive DeVito is, right, Nick? I mean, like, this is what we're talking about. When you say quick release, getting the ball out fast, it's all about your process as a quarterback. How do you naturally react to the post-snap process of playing the quarterback position? And you could see from here, it's not much thinking here. It's just drive the ball and get it to the receiver here and understand where you're going to have that space outside the numbers. And that's exactly what he does. And then you pinpoint that you couple that with ball placement here. The ball placement's phenomenal. Look at where this ball is thrown to. I mean, you could talk about the velocity on the rip, which was great, and you could see that more even on the broadcast angle, I felt like, but you can see it here too. But it's the ball placement, dude, because it allows Wan'Dale Robinson to get upfield after the catch and potentially make more yards. I mean, he creates another 6-7 year, but if there's no safety help on a different play, it's going to be a touchdown there because he gets it far enough outside that he can transition upfield without losing much ground. There's a little bit of a stumble in Wan'Dale Robinson post catch, but the cool part about this play, Nick, and you can throw it one more time. I just want people to see it one more time. All right,
okay,
we're already out. It's fine. The best part about this play is Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, DeVito's awesome in it, but Wan'Dale Robinson, that move, that route, that move he puts on that corner. I mean, driving that leg left and then exploding back out while losing no ground. It's filthy, dude. It's like when we watch Kadarius Toney, because I know you mentioned this on last night's pod. You're like, I feel like Wan'Dale Robinson is everything they were hoping Kadarius Toney would be when they drafted him. Part of what got me excited about Toney in year 1 was that Dallas film when he had 190 or whatever he had. And part of what got me excited was not just like, oh, this dude's awesome when he gets the football. He gets low. He looks like Kamara. It's that the route running. It's like the move he made on Trayvon Diggs where he had that inside out route.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, that's the type of thing you see there on that rep from Wan'Dale Robinson, really elite level route running. And that can create separation at all levels of the field. So it has me really excited about Wan'Dale Robinson. I feel like at different moments of the season, Nick, I've gotten really excited about the tape on Wan'Dale and the tape on Jalin Hyatt. And those are just 2 young players they have on the roster under contract for super cheap. Not much against the cap for Wan'Dale, not much against the cap for Jalin Hyatt for next year, for the year after for both of those players. So it's just a 2 really nice building blocks and 2 talented players. And I think last night was a really good example of why, you can't really just rely on wide receiver stats and production to kind of determine if the receivers are playing well. Yeah, because how much of the passing game is based on timing and quarterback processing and getting the ball out where it needs to be, and how much of wide receiver production is dependent on that. And last night, in spots where the ball was out on time, it was a great game for these receivers. And by the way, Wan'Dale could have had a bigger game. You didn't put it out there, Nick. It wasn't one of the clips you put up, but the early third down that they had, I believe it was a 3rd and 8. Wan'Dale ran another really sick route on that play to get open, and DeVito just sailed it a little bit. I feel like the wind was playing a factor.
He did that a little bit in the first half, a couple times, DeVito.
Yeah. And both quarterbacks were sailing it in the first half, to be completely honest. So I felt like that was just another example of if he makes that, if that throws on time and in the right spot, because on that play, if you watch it, it's very similar. If he catches that ball, Nick, and he gets upfield, the safety was way further downfield. It probably would have been about a 40-yard gain for Wan'Dale, and he could have even made someone miss in the open space. We don't know. But now we're looking at like a 130-yard gain out of the kid, right? Or a 110-yard gain.
The short area quickness in the body control in and out of the breaks, man, because he's been very deceptive up his stem, something that we haven't necessarily seen, and how explosive he is when he puts his foot in the ground coming out of that break. That's something that Wan'Dale Robinson has really shown this year. And it's something that I think maybe we didn't put out there, but we were a little, we were a little nervous. He tore his ACL last year.
Yeah.
Was he going to be that guy? Who knew it, right? But dude, he looks just as quick and just as explosive as we saw last year before the injury.
Without a doubt. All right, Nick, let's get into some superlatives for this game. And I'm going to go with first the unheralded player of the game. There were some options here, but I feel like the answer is pretty obvious to me, at least.
Yeah, we both have Daniel Bellinger. Just so many gritty, tough blocks in the trenches that are going to go unheralded, that aren't going to jump on the stat sheet, that led to huge Saquon Barkley runs or nice little runs by Wan'Dale Robinson on the jet sweeps. Just he can block in space. He can hold up at the line of scrimmage against the Rashawn Gary on a touchdown run. Like, just the little things like that go a long way. Yes. And it's imperative for the Giants this season because they have nobody at tight end. Darren Waller's hurt right now. Darren Waller's not necessarily that guy, albeit I think he impressed me with his blocking overall, but not to the Daniel Bellinger level. Daniel Bellinger is a plus tight end blocker, plus tight end blocker. And I've been wanting one of those for the Giants since, I don't know, Bear Pasco.
Yes. And by the way, it's not only that, it's like he catches everything that's thrown to him, right? And like I said last week on tape, he shows himself open in the vertical plane. The ball doesn't always come his way, but he's open in a lot of times.
He had another one like that in this one.
He did have another one like that in this one. Good point.
Smash concept.
Yep. And they're going to hit him at some point on that. Like he's been open 3 games in a row on the vertical plane. They're going to get him. They're going to find him. That's just how it goes. They're going to see the tape. DeVito's instinctive enough, I think, to get the ball out there at some point in these next few games. But when you add all that in, it's like, to me, Nick, it's so hard to locate and find tight ends in the draft who are good blockers. I feel like some guys are even supposed to be good blockers and they end up not being good blockers. And I always find that weird. They're like, this guy's strength is a blocking coming out of, and then it's like he gets the NFL level and it's just not there. He's already there at the NFL level from a blocking standpoint. It's proven, it's documented on tape. So now it's just about, like, when you have that kind of asset, in my opinion, you got to keep that asset because that's the thing. When you have a tight end who can block, it makes a difference in your whole, on a game film, at least. It makes such a difference when you watch on so many different plays because it impacts so many more plays than a tight end who doesn't block that well. Because, that tight end who doesn't block that well may make 3, 4, 5 sick catches a game, and you're like, that's sick. He did awesome. Like in Isaiah Likely, for example, had an explosive play for the Baltimore Ravens this past week. Obviously, he offers nothing as a blocker. And that's great. For 4 or 5 plays, he's making a huge impact. But for Bellinger, it's like 30, 40 plays a game he's making an impact on.
Yeah, it's great to see, man. And the best route, I think we have the same one. Going to go over the route that we just went over, the 32-yard catch to set up the game-winning field goal by Wan'Dale Robinson. That's the catch, not the field goal. That would be Randy Bullock. Best throw. I went with the Hodgins touchdown, and I think you did as well. Look at us, man. We're just copying each other right now.
I know. Well, these ones were more defined. I said that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's probably the Hodgins touchdown. It is the Hodgins touchdown. But I want to give a runner-up to the Wan'Dale 32-yarder for the throw from DeVito. Like I said, that ball was on a line, perfect ball placement, outside the numbers, a very difficult throw to make. And it's not just like the throw there to me. It's just the whole process, man. He's so much quicker in getting the ball out of his hands and driving it to a spot. And it just makes such a difference when the ball's out of the quarterback's hands fast because you see fewer offensive line breaks. And you see fewer instances of like, I'm standing in there, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. And like, then I get out and now the play's broken by that point. It's like, the ball's out. The offensive line can't impact the play as much when the ball's just out of the quarterback's hands and going to a spot. And so I ultimately feel like that was maybe his biggest throw. Maybe not his best throw, but his biggest throw, if that makes sense. And then how about the best player overall on tape? This is an interesting one. I had two people in mind.
Yeah, I had two people in mind as well, and I
You're
went
really
with.
leaning into the DeVito thing. I got two peoples in mind.
Hey, I got two peoples over here. What
Like
am I
how
gonna
the
do,
Italians always like
dude?
have to,
I see so
or
many
they
people.
pluralize so many things that should be singularized.
I guess we do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I do, but maybe I do. I didn't mean to. I see so many people on Twitter doing the like the impersonations, the over the top impersonations of the like. I feel like I see so much more now that Tommy DeVito is a thing. It used to
Yeah.
just be like Nikki Cass, and now it's like
Uh-huh.
everybody trying to do this, which
It
is
funny.
yeah, it is. I'm gonna go with Wan'Dale Robinson though over Tommy DeVito. You know, Tommy DeVito, he's my people's, but I'm going with Wan'Dale Robinson just because this is the second week in a row that I'm looking at Wan'Dale Robinson's impact on this team, and not even just from a what did he do on the stat sheet, but what is he doing to open up other receivers? What is his impact in the pre-snap phase? And now in this game, you see the catches.
The number is 8, by the way. I looked it up
Yeah.
for DeVito.
Yeah, regardless of the fact, Wan'Dale Robinson is making plays at all three levels of the field. We thought he was just going to be this check down guy, yak. No, he's making plays down the football field. He is showing his intelligence. He is showing the reason why Joe Shane and Brian Dable added him to the New York Giants, right? Why they drafted him over players like George Pickens. I think there are other reasons as well, but the intelligence, the spatial awareness, the being on the same page, the reliability, the strength after the catch too, man, the yards after the catch, the adjustment, all these things, concentration, track. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from Wan'Dale Robinson over the last couple of weeks, and that's my player.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not give it to a player like DeVito in a game like this. 17 of 21 is so insanely efficient. Didn't turn the ball over, threw for 110 in the second half, ran for 71, made big time plays and throws the biggest moments. I mean, look, that touchdown to Hodgins, that's 3rd and 7, dude. That's going to be a field goal a lot of the times watching Giants football. It's going to change the whole game if it's a field goal. And then the throw, obviously, on that final drive, it's a 2-minute drill drive. Like the pressure is on. But even with that said, Nick, my game ball goes to Wan'Dale Robinson because he was just on another level in this game and looked like, in my opinion, one of the better receivers in the NFL. Like that was the first glimpse for me, at least, of Wan'Dale Robinson, Nick, where I was like, I'm not going to put a label on him because he doesn't have the prototypical size for it, but I was like, this could be a number one weapon on your team type of thing. Like you can do game plans around this kid. You can use him as a key cog of your offense. It's the first time I really felt like that for sure. Like you brought up the Detroit game, I think yesterday, Nick, and I'm like, I was thinking back on that game and I was like, kind of a lot of that was just like garbage time type of production, and still a lot of what you were saying, like check down type stuff. It was obviously a different offense, a different type of concepts run in the offense. This was not really like check down shit. This was like him running routes on the vertical plane and creating separation by running unbelievable routes and having that kind of explosion in and out of his breaks and making big plays because of it. How many big explosive plays did he have? We talked about the 3rd and 8 that DeVito missed as well. That would have been another 40 yards, like I said earlier.
Let's go with pass blocking grade 1 through 10.
Mine, I think, is a little bit lower than yours when I looked at it. I have a 7.7. The Giants allowed 17 pressures, 2 hits, but no sacks in this game. I honestly felt like the reason it was probably not as high, and 7.7 is still high, one of the higher grades we've given. But the reason it wasn't fully on my elite level, Nick, was because I felt like some of it was just DeVito getting rid of the football fast and being super decisive with where he wanted to go with the ball and navigating the pocket much better than he had in any of the previous games. But I think overall, it was 7.7 is still one of the strongest numbers I've given out.
Yeah, I have an 8.6, so a little bit stronger
you
than
liked
you.
it a lot.
But I think your point is still valid. Because DeVito, there were a couple times where the pocket it got really condensed. A lot of it was Ben Bredesen, to be honest. Ben Bredesen got bullied, but again, he recovered well.
Times too. I know he's recovering from them, but he lets the pocket get tense.
No, of course. Andrew Thomas, to me, absolute stud. John Michael Schmitz had a very good game. And Justin Pugh is also reliable, just steady Eddie for the New York Giants. So I still went with an 8.6. I think just preventing Tommy DeVito, and I do think a lot of it was DeVito. This defense, though, they have some pass rushers, right? And not allowing a sack against them, there's something to be said about that. And I do agree, though. It was a very efficient game from Tommy DeVito. The football was coming out. Run blocking grade, I have a 6.1, and I know you are somewhat similar just by judging by the sheet, but there were a couple runs that were blocked up very well. But I do think Saquon Barkley he makes a lot of things happen. 26.
I had 5.7, a little above average for me, 5 being average. Like, I feel like, yes, a lot of it to me on tape, at least, was Saquon Barkley doing some of his best work individually in this game, just given what you said, creating those forced missed tackles.
a lot of it was also me factoring in the wide receivers and the tight ends.
Well, yeah,
and their
actually, you know
blocking
what?
ability.
If they should be factored in, I should have a higher grade because of that.
Yeah, and it probably should be higher than 6'1" from that standpoint. Like,
If we're
just
yeah,
watching 17 throw blocks, and I'm just like, dude, he's like
he's
actually
a
not
young
that.
Sterling Shepard as a blocker.
Dude, he's not that bad at it though, too. It's
We
like,
always get these little guys who can block at wide
and
receiver. It's
Sterling's
great.
not even little though. We
No.
think he is, but he's not. He's like 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot. Like, that's
Yeah.
a solid size wide. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson is like, he's a
Real
small
little,
wide
yeah.
receiver, and he's feisty, man.
He's
I'll
still
tell you.
making those blocks. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. This was good tape to watch, Nick. Tommy DeVito is having fun out there. He's doing everything he can to give himself a chance to keep starting. And as Dable said after last night's game, it's not even a decision. He's starting next week for the Giants. You know, it's not going to be him versus Taylor. We'll find out on Thursday or Wednesday. This kid earned himself another start for sure. And in my opinion, he's probably, after this win, Nick, I would suggest that I would think that unless it really implodes, he'll probably be starting the rest of the season.
I think that's a good take.
Yeah.
He's going to have his work cut out for him in New
yeah.
Orleans. That's a good defense with veterans. I think they're going to have a good game plan.
Play a lot of man.
You're not in MetLife, bro. You're not in MetLife now. So you got to perform. And this is one of the tougher spots to play in the NFL.
I think it's going to be a tough spot for him for sure, though I think that Wink is going to absolutely destroy Derek Carr in this game, like physically and mentally. That's what I think is going to happen to Derek Carr. We'll see if I'm right, but physically and mentally, I think he's going to have a really, and especially because, and we'll get to this on Defensive Podcast, but I'm very, very enthused with what I saw on tape, at least, from Azeez Ojulari. And that's what has me kind of excited about this New Orleans matchup, because I know New Orleans has had their problems at left tackle this season, and really ever since they let Terron Armstead go. So we're going to see what happens there next week. But we'll get to that on the Defensive Film Pod. Thank you to everybody tuning in. This is the Big Blue Banter podcast. Finally, fun to talk about some winning tape and actual good tape, you know? And so we'll enjoy it while it lasts at this point. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed watching those play breakdowns, those throws from DeVito, those routes and catches from Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins and others. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.